Fellow contrarians, welcome to the starting point of our grand journey through the crypto frontier. I'm Cornelius Ledgerkin of the Decoding Crypto Team, and I invite you to join me as we dive deep into the bedrock of blockchain, the mysterious and powerful realm of Layer 1 technology. Now, before we begin, let me be perfectly clear. Nothing you hear today is financial advice. This is for educational purposes only. The world of crypto is filled with opportunity, yes, but also risk. So tread wisely, think critically, and never invest more than you're prepared to lose. Now then, where were we? Yes, Layer 1. Imagine, if you will, a vast digital city. Skyscrapers rise into the sky, bustling marketplaces hum with activity, and all manner of innovation unfolds in real time. That city, it's the blockchain ecosystem. And at the very foundation of it all, beneath the bridges, beneath the buildings, lies the infrastructure that makes everything possible, the Layer 1 blockchains. Layer 1, or L1 for short, is the base protocol layer of a blockchain. Unlike secondary or Layer 2 solutions that build atop existing networks to improve speed and scalability, L1 blockchains are sovereign. They are the bedrock, with their own rules, their own consensus mechanisms, their own native tokens. Every transaction, every smart contract, every asset on a blockchain must ultimately settle on a Layer 1. Picture thousands of nodes spread across the world, each holding a complete copy of the blockchain's history. When a user sends a transaction, whether it's transferring a token, minting an NFT, or triggering a smart contract, those nodes validate it based on consensus rules. Only after validation is it added to the immutable ledger. This architecture is what makes blockchains transparent, tamper-proof, and resistant to censorship. There is no central authority. There is only the network. Now, what are the key components that make a Layer 1 blockchain tick? First, we have the consensus mechanism, the protocol by which the network agrees on what is true. Is it proof of work like Bitcoin, proof of stake like Ethereum's post-merge version, or perhaps something more exotic like Avalanche's Snowball protocol or Solana's proof of history? Each approach has its strengths and trade-offs. Next, we have the network protocol, the rules that govern how nodes talk to each other and stay in sync. Then there's the data structure, often based on Merkle trees, which ensures that every piece of information on the blockchain is efficiently organized and verifiable. Of course, we can't forget the native token, the cryptocurrency that powers the network, rewards validators, and aligns incentives. And finally, the transaction model, which defines how value moves from one party to another. Bitcoin uses UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs, while Ethereum uses an account-based model. To understand where we are today, we must look back at how we got here. The story begins in 2009 with the birth of Bitcoin. Crafted by the enigmatic Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin was the first true Layer 1 blockchain. Its purpose, simple but profound: peer-to-peer electronic cash, free from intermediaries. Bitcoin introduced proof of work and created digital scarcity, a currency with a hard cap secured by the raw computational power of miners. It wasn't fast, 7 transactions per second, give or take, but it was secure and decentralized. Then came Ethereum in 2015. Vitalik Buterin envisioned more than just money. He imagined a world computer, a platform for decentralized applications. With Ethereum, we got smart contracts, Turing-complete programming, and the Ethereum Virtual Machine, EVM. It was a game changer, but it also inherited Bitcoin's limitations: low throughput and high fees during congestion. Soon, others entered the fray. Between 2017 and 2020, the so-called Ethereum killers emerged: EOS, Tezos, Cardano, each claiming to solve Ethereum's shortcomings. EOS introduced delegated proof of stake, boosting performance at the cost of some decentralization. Cardano took a more academic path, building its Ouroboros consensus protocol from peer-reviewed theory. Yet none managed to dethrone Ethereum, not yet. Then came the high-performance Layer 1s, Solana, Avalanche, Sui, the speed demons of the blockchain world. Solana's proof of history broke barriers, enabling 50,000 transactions per second under ideal conditions. Avalanche, with its unique snowball consensus, promised near-instant finality. Each of these chains prioritized scalability, seeking to support the next generation of decentralized applications and global-scale adoption. But in chasing performance, a challenge emerged, one that Vitalik Buterin famously called the blockchain trilemma: security, scalability, decentralization. Choose two, and you'll likely sacrifice the third. Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example, prioritize security and decentralization. They are battle-tested, resilient, but slow. Solana and BNB Chain prioritize security and scalability, but require powerful hardware and centralized infrastructure. That raises concerns. Others attempt to balance scalability and decentralization, but often weaken their security in the process. There is no perfect answer, only trade-offs. Every Layer 1 must decide where it sits on this triangle. Ethereum, post-merge, has chosen to maintain its security and decentralization at the base layer and push scalability to Layer 2 rollups. Bitcoin, ever the minimalist, remains focused on being sound money, digital gold, and resists change. And that brings us to philosophy, the values that shape a chain's design. Some chains, like Bitcoin, aim to be minimalist and secure. Their scripting languages are intentionally limited to reduce attack surfaces. Others, like Ethereum, aim for general-purpose computing, offering flexibility and programmability to developers. Still others, like Ronin or DDX Chain, go the app-specific route, building Layer 1s optimized for a single use case, like gaming or trading. There's also a growing debate between monolithic and modular blockchains. Traditional chains handle everything in one layer: execution, settlement, consensus, and data availability. Modular chains split these responsibilities, like Celestia, which focuses solely on data availability while letting other layers handle the rest. And yet, even with Layer 2s rising in prominence, rollups, sidechains, and ZK Tech gaining steam, the Layer 1 blockchains remain the beating heart of the ecosystem. They are the final arbiters of truth, the ground upon which all else is built. Their consensus mechanisms, security models, and governance structures determine the safety and integrity of the broader blockchain universe. Innovation is far from over. New consensus mechanisms are being developed. Cross-chain communication through protocols like IBC is gaining traction. Ethereum continues to work toward sharding, splitting its network into parallel lanes to boost throughput. And zero-knowledge cryptography promises breakthroughs in both privacy and scalability. So, fellow contrarians, as you explore this wild and wondrous crypto landscape, remember, the Layer 1s are not just technical curiosities. They are the foundations of trust, the engines of consensus, and the guardians of digital value. To understand them is to understand the soul of crypto itself. Fellow contrarians, thank you for staying with me. In our last chapter, we uncovered the architectural heart of blockchain, the Layer 1 networks, sovereign systems with their own consensus, tokens, and philosophies. But a foundation, no matter how solid, must be built upon. So now, let us step out of the abstract and into the living, breathing ecosystems that have emerged atop these foundational layers. This is Chapter 2, a journey through the major Layer 1 blockchain projects that are not just laying infrastructure, but boldly shaping the rules of the game. Each of these projects approaches the blockchain trilemma, security, scalability, and decentralization, from a different angle. Each makes a unique set of compromises, reflecting the values and visions of their communities and architects. Let's begin with the trailblazer Ethereum, the pioneer of programmable blockchains. When Ethereum launched in 2015, it wasn't just another cryptocurrency. It was a statement. Vitalik Buterin and his cohort envisioned a blockchain not as a static ledger of payments, but as a world computer, a decentralized platform where applications could live free from central control. At the heart of Ethereum lies the Ethereum Virtual Machine, or EVM. Unlike Bitcoin's intentionally limited scripting language, the EVM is Turing complete, capable of executing any logic a developer can dream up. This gave birth to smart contracts, self-executing pieces of code that run exactly as written. It was the beginning of a decentralized revolution. Ethereum introduced a new account-based model for managing balances and state, which has simplified interactions for developers and users alike. And to prevent the system from being bogged down by infinite loops or spam, Ethereum implemented the gas mechanism, a way to meter computation and create an open dynamic fee market. From this programmable foundation emerged the earliest decentralized applications, lending platforms like Aave and Compound, decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, algorithmic stablecoins like DAI, and of course, NFTs born through the now famous ERC 721 standard. Ethereum wasn't just a blockchain. It became a breeding ground for ideas that would shape the future of finance and ownership. Then came the merge, a feat some called impossible. In September of 2022, Ethereum transitioned from proof of work to proof of stake, all without halting the network. Overnight, Ethereum's energy use dropped by 99.95%. New ETH issuance fell by nearly 90%, and staking became the new mechanism for network security. With over 30 million ETH now staked and nearly 1 million validators securing the chain, Ethereum not only became greener, but also economically leaner. But Ethereum didn't stop there. Rather than scaling through brute force at the base layer, it chose a roll-up-centric roadmap, scaling through modularity. With upgrades like EIP 4844, Ethereum introduced cheaper roll-up transactions through a new data format called blobs. Coming soon is dank sharding, a system for dramatically expanding data availability, followed by Verkle trees, which will lighten the burden on validators by enabling stateless clients. Ethereum is evolving not by compromising its principles, but by building an ecosystem of layers that specialize in what they do best. Contrast that with Bitcoin, the original Layer 1, the digital bedrock of the crypto movement. Where Ethereum innovated in programmability, Bitcoin perfected immutability. Its design is minimalist, its approach conservative, and its community fiercely protective of its purpose, to be sound money. Bitcoin uses the UTXO model, a ledger of unspent outputs, making verification simple and secure. Its scripting language is deliberately limited, minimizing risk. Changes to the protocol are rare and only implemented with overwhelming consensus. And because of that, Bitcoin has never been successfully compromised at the base layer, not once. Yet Bitcoin has not stood still. With the Taproot upgrade in 2021, Bitcoin gained new privacy tools and smart contract capabilities via Schnorr signatures and Merkleized scripts. The Lightning Network has matured, enabling fast, cheap transactions by settling payments off-chain. And yes, Even Bitcoin has flirted with NFTs thanks to the Ordinals protocol, which allows content to be inscribed directly onto Satoshi, the smallest unit of BTC. Its narrative, too, has shifted. Once pitched as a peer-to-peer cash system, Bitcoin is now widely seen as digital gold, a politically neutral store of value with a fixed supply and unmatched security. Its role may have changed, but its mission, to exist beyond the reach of centralized control, remains resolute. Then there's Solana, the speedster of the Layer 1 world. Solana took a radically different approach. What if time itself could be used as a data structure? With proof of history, Solana stamps each transaction with cryptographic time, drastically reducing coordination overhead. Combine that with a hybrid consensus system, high-performance parallelization via sea-level, and efficient block propagation protocols like Turbine and Gulfstream, and you get a blockchain capable of 50,000 plus TPS and sub-second finality. Of course, Solana has had its growing pains, network outages, the FTX collapse, and deep market corrections. But as of 2025, it has clawed its way back with no outages since 2023, a maturing fee market, and strong adoption across gaming, NFTs, and DeFi. Solana may have sprinted ahead, stumbled, and scraped its knees, but it's back on its feet, faster and more stable than ever. And then we arrive at Cardano, the academic of the group. Founded on peer-reviewed research and formal verification, Cardano's progress may be slow, but it is deliberate. With its two-layer architecture, Cardano separates settlement and computation, allowing for focused evolution. Its smart contracts, written in Plutus, run on foundations built in Haskell, emphasizing correctness and mathematical assurance. The Ouroboros consensus protocol brought provable security to proof-of-stake, and as of 2025, Cardano has progressed deep into its Basho and Voltaire eras, focusing on scalability through Hydra state channels and on-chain governance through a decentralized treasury. Where others rush, Cardano refines. Other contenders deserve mention as well. Avalanche, with its subnet architecture, lets developers spin up their own customizable L1s. From institutional finance to gaming, over 50 subnets are now live. Polkadot, with its relay chain and parachains, emphasizes interoperability, letting chains communicate through the XCM protocol while maintaining shared security. Then there's the new wave of performance-driven chains, Sui and Aptos, both born from Facebook's Diem project, leveraging the Move language and parallel execution to unlock new efficiency. And Hedera, with its hash graph consensus, steps beyond the blockchain entirely, offering high throughput and finality through a DAG structure, favored by enterprises for its predictable governance and speed. Oh, for those who wonder, DAG stands for Directed Acyclic Graph, a mouthful I know, but stick with me. It's an alternative to the traditional blockchain structure we're used to. In a blockchain, transactions are grouped into blocks, and each block links to the one before it, forming a single linear chain. This means transactions are processed one after another in sequential order. Simple, secure, but not always fast or efficient, especially when the network gets congested. A DAG, on the other hand, works more like a web than a chain. Instead of stacking transactions into blocks, each transaction or piece of data in a DAG links directly to one or more previous transactions. It's directed because the data flows in one direction, from earlier to later transactions. And it's acyclic because the graph never loops back on itself. No circular references. This ensures consistency, but without the need for bundling everything into a block. Now, here's the magic. Because of this structure, multiple transactions can be confirmed in parallel. That's right. Instead of waiting for the next block, new transactions help validate previous ones. This can lead to much higher throughput and faster confirmations, especially in systems like Hedera Hashgraph or IOTA that are based on DAGs. Of course, it's not without trade-offs. Coordinating consensus and ensuring security across a nonlinear structure can be complex. But for certain use cases, especially high-throughput applications like IoT or enterprise systems, a DAG can offer speed and scalability that traditional blockchains struggle to match. In short, a blockchain is a straight road. A DAG is a web of highways, all leading forward, allowing traffic to flow in many directions at once, but never in reverse. Each of these Layer 1s reflects a different answer to the same fundamental question. How do we build trust in a trustless world? Some choose speed, others security. Some value decentralization above all. None are perfect, but all are pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And that, fellow contrarians, brings us to our next chapter. Because just beyond the familiar giants lies a new class of contenders, hungry, experimental, and bold. Next, we'll explore the emerging Layer 1 protocols, the disruptors rising from the fringes, wielding new consensus models, novel programming languages, and radical design philosophies. These are the builders who aren't just improving the system, they're trying to reinvent it. So stay with me as we step off the well-worn paths and into the frontier. The next era of blockchain is already being written, and you, my fellow contrarians, are here for its first draft. Fellow contrarians, let's continue our journey. We've walked through the well-paved streets of Ethereum and Bitcoin. We've examined the fortified citadels of Solana, Cardano, and Avalanche. But now, in this third chapter, we veer off the main road and descend into the frontier, where the true experimenters dwell. Here, the rules aren't just rewritten. Sometimes they're thrown out altogether. This is the world of emerging Layer 1 protocols, bold, brash, purpose-built projects that aren't content to incrementally improve the status quo. No, these are the chains that seek to disrupt it entirely. Let us begin with Hyperliquid, a blockchain that takes the idea of financial infrastructure and runs with it like a trader late to market close. You see, most DeFi projects are built on general-purpose chains where finance is merely one of many use cases. Hyperliquid flips that model on its head. Finance isn't an application here, it's the foundation. At its core is a dual-layer architecture, Hypercore, purpose-built for handling financial logic, like margin accounting and cross-market liquidity, and Hyper-EVM, a smart contract environment for programmability. But what truly sets Hyperliquid apart is its performance. We're talking nanosecond-level order matching, zero gas fees for failed transactions, and atomic cross-margin that would make even the most advanced centralized exchange take notice. This is made possible by HyperBFT, a consensus mechanism tailored specifically for financial applications. Unlike probabilistic finality found in other chains, HyperBFT offers deterministic execution with sub-second finality, about 500 milliseconds to be exact. It's designed for the high-stakes world of derivatives and trading, where every millisecond and every order counts. The result? By early 2025, Hyperliquid wasn't just competing with DeFi, it was competing with Wall Street. With daily volumes topping $2 billion and open interest surpassing $450 million, it's not just a blockchain, it's becoming the backbone of a new kind of financial system. Then there's Monad, a chain that's earned whispers of admiration and curiosity alike. Many have tried to scale Ethereum's capabilities, Monad may be the first to truly pull it off, all while remaining 100% compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine. That means developers can copy-paste their existing smart contracts onto Monad and immediately benefit from 10,000 transactions per second and 1 second finality. How does it do this? Through parallel transaction execution, a feat many have attempted, but few have mastered. Monad's system detects which transactions can run side by side without conflict and executes them in parallel. Add in speculative execution, dynamic batching, and a blazing fast custom database called MonadDB, and you've got one of the most technically impressive architectures in the EVM universe. Even its consensus mechanism, MonadBFT, is optimized for speed and scale, delivering single-slot finality with low overhead, all while maintaining the robust fault tolerance we've come to expect from Byzantine-inspired models. Backed by a war chest of $225 million and supported by crypto's heavyweight investors, Monad is not just a technical marvel. It's a well-funded bid to challenge Ethereum at its own game. But what if performance and precision weren't the only goals? What if you built a chain that was just as much about culture as it was about code? Enter Berachain, a blockchain born not from a white paper, but from the memes and madness of the bear market. Don't let the ooga booga slogans and bear mascots fool you, though. Beneath the playful branding is serious technical innovation. Berachain introduces proof of liquidity, a consensus model where validators don't just stake idle tokens. They provide liquidity to the protocol's pools. In other words, security doesn't come from locked-up capital doing nothing. It comes from capital that's working, providing swaps, generating yield, and strengthening the ecosystem. Validators here are also market makers. Liquidity is the collateral. Utility becomes security. This creates a powerful flywheel where participation isn't just encouraged, it's rewarded economically and socially. With a triple token model, Bera, Honey, and BGT, Berachain weaves together governance, yield, and stability in a way that's novel and surprisingly effective. And the community? Rabid, passionate, organized. Over 1.2 million testnet participants, more than 300 projects preparing to launch, and social metrics that rival even Ethereum. Berachain is proof that culture isn't fluff, it's fuel. And then there's the broader movement, the rise of application-specific Layer 1s. These aren't trying to be everything for everyone. They're designed with laser focus. Chains like DYDX chain, which is built for perpetual futures trading and processes over $2 billion in volume daily, or Injective, purpose-built for derivatives. Ronin, optimized for gaming. Story Protocol, targeting intellectual property and licensing. Why build a general-purpose highway when your users just need a high-speed rail to a specific destination? These specialized chains offer optimized performance, reduced costs, and governance models tailored to their unique needs. And this trend isn't slowing down. We're seeing emerging L1s for real-world assets, for AI computation, for decentralized identity, and even for institutional finance, each with unique consensus, economic, and security assumptions built in from the start. This is the great specialization of blockchain, a sign that the industry is maturing. Just as the internet evolved from general networks into application-specific platforms like YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon, so too is crypto evolving from Ethereum clones into bespoke ecosystems designed to do one thing and do it well. Before we journey any further, a word to you, my fellow contrarians. You've now seen just how vast and varied the new frontier of Layer 1s has become. From the high-frequency precision of Hyperliquid to the performance-engineered brilliance of Monad, to the cultural force meets technical firepower of Berachain, and the rise of application-specific chains reshaping blockchain architecture, we've only scratched the surface. And here's where I turn it over to you. If there's a particular project that caught your eye, one of these emerging Layer 1s that you want to see dissected, analyzed, and decoded in full, drop it in the comments. Whether it's a protocol we mentioned today or a hidden gem flying under the radar, let us know. Because this isn't just my exploration, it's ours. And the best discoveries are the ones we make together. Now, as promised, let's prepare to go even deeper, because none of these L1S, not Ethereum, not Bitcoin, not Hyperliquid, Berachain, or Monad, could operate without one crucial force: consensus. How do blockchains reach agreement without a central authority? How do they stay secure against attacks? How do they balance speed, cost, and decentralization? In the next chapter, we explore the consensus mechanisms that power the world of Layer 1, from proof of work and proof of stake to proof of history, proof of liquidity, and even the experimental models that might define the next era. This is where cryptography meets coordination, where trust meets math. So buckle in, we're going to the source of truth itself. In our last chapter, we explored the rise of new Layer 1s, fast, focused, and sometimes wildly experimental. But now in this chapter, we dig even deeper to the very engine room of blockchain technology, the machinery that determines who writes to the ledger and how that ledger remains incorruptible. Yes, today we talk about the heart of every Layer 1. Consensus mechanisms, the elegant, often underappreciated systems that allow a decentralized world to agree on a single truth. Let us begin at the beginning with the original, proof of work. It all started with Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto's design wasn't just about digital money, it was about solving a decades-old riddle in computer science, the Byzantine general's problem. How do you coordinate a decentralized group of actors in an adversarial environment without relying on trust? Satoshi's answer? Require participants to prove they did work, computational work. In proof of work, miners compete to solve a cryptographic puzzle, searching for a special number, a nonce, that, when hashed with other block data, yields an output starting with a certain number of zeros. Now, this isn't a puzzle you can outsmart. It's brute force, trial and error. It's expensive, it's time-consuming, and that's the point. Once solved, the rest of the network can easily verify the result, creating an asymmetry, hard to produce, easy to verify. This is the very definition of unforgeable costliness, and it's what makes Bitcoin trustless yet trustworthy, and the security formidable. A 51% attack on Bitcoin today would require billions of dollars in hardware and energy, not to mention coordination across mining farms worldwide. And even if an attacker succeeded, the costs would likely far exceed any potential reward. But there's a cost, a very literal one. Bitcoin's energy consumption in 2025 sits between 150 to 170 terawatt hours annually, rivaling entire countries. This has sparked environmental debates, regulatory scrutiny, and calls for alternatives. Though, to be fair, over half of Bitcoin's mining is now estimated to run on renewable energy. Still, perception matters, and for many new chains, the path has shifted. Enter proof of stake. POS turns the model on its head. Instead of burning electricity, participants lock up tokens, staking them as collateral. The network then chooses validators based on the size of their stake. Act honestly, and you earn rewards. Cheat, and you risk being slashed. your token's cut as punishment. POS is elegant in its own right. It's energy efficient, no mining farms required. It's fast, with finality measured in seconds, but it's not without trade-offs. Large holders can accumulate influence. The so-called nothing at stake problem means validators might try to validate conflicting chains. And if too much stake ends up in the hands of exchanges or liquid staking protocols, we risk recreating centralization in a system meant to escape it. Different chains take different approaches. Algorand, for instance, uses verifiable random functions to select validators from the entire token holder population. No slashing, no wealthy gatekeepers. Delegated proof of stake, seen in chains like EOS or Tron, lets users vote for a fixed set of block producers. It's fast, but critics argue it sacrifices decentralization for performance. Cosmos and Polkadot use bonded POS, where tokens are locked and subject to unbonding delays, a mechanism to prevent bad behavior. And of course, there's Ethereum. The merge, Ethereum's historic switch from POW to POS, was not just an upgrade, it was a surgical heart transplant on a living organism. By 2025, Ethereum boasts over 950,000 validators, securing the network with over 30 million ETH staked. It combines fork choice and finality via LMD Ghost and Casper FFG, making Ethereum's POS one of the most sophisticated consensus systems in the world. Yet even this isn't the end of innovation. Far from it. We now turn to the novel consensus mechanisms, the bold, the experimental, the strange yet promising. Solana, for instance, introduced proof of history, a cryptographic clock that allows transactions to be pre-ordered before consensus. It's not consensus on its own, but it supercharges performance, enabling Solana to hit sub-second block times and process tens of thousands of transactions per second. Hedera Hashgraph abandoned the blockchain model altogether. Using a directed acyclic graph and virtual voting, it achieves consensus with astonishing efficiency, up to 10,000 TPS with ABFT-level security. Its gossip protocol, where nodes share gossip about gossip, ensures that every event eventually reaches every participant. Unconventional, absolutely, but effective. And then there's Avalanche, a consensus protocol inspired by snowflakes and subsampled voting. Here, nodes repeatedly ask a random subset of peers for their opinion. If everyone keeps agreeing, you converge on consensus. It's probabilistic, yes, but incredibly scalable and fast. Finality in 1-2 seconds, even with thousands of validators. We've also seen hybrids emerge. Tendermint, used in Cosmos, mixes Byzantine fault tolerance with POS hot stuff. The engine behind Aptos and Sui streamlines leader-based BFT consensus. Berachain, ever the iconoclast, uses proof of liquidity, where validators stake liquidity, not idle tokens, bringing economic utility into the security model itself. Each of these systems carries its own strengths, weaknesses, and trade-offs, but all push the boundary of what consensus can be. Now, before we forge ahead, if you've made it this far, you're clearly not just passing through. You're here to learn, to question, to decode. So if you're finding value in these explorations, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your fellow contrarians. We're building something special here, and every action you take helps keep this knowledge free, open, and growing. Now, let's round out our chapter. Consensus is not just a technical protocol. It defines the very character of a blockchain, its performance, its decentralization, its security, and even its values. Do you prioritize immutability above all, like Bitcoin, speed and efficiency like Solana, economic alignment like Ethereum, or community-first innovation like Berachain? There is no single right answer, only trade-offs. And in those trade-offs, we see the personality of each network emerge. But here's the catch. No blockchain is an island. For all their individual strengths, Layer 1s still face a major hurdle. They don't naturally talk to one another. And in a world of many chains, each with its own consensus, economy, and data, the question becomes, how do we connect them? That's the question we'll tackle next. In the next one, we dive into interoperability, the bridges, protocols, and standards that are weaving this fragmented landscape into a coherent cross-chain universe. From Cosmos's IBC to Layer 0, Wormhole, and Polkadot's Relay Chain, we'll explore the technologies that promise to make the blockchain world not just bigger, but more connected. So stick with me, fellow contrarians. The chains are waking up, and they're starting to speak. Fellow contrarians, good to see that you're still here with me. In our last few chapters, we ventured through the core architecture of Layer 1 blockchains, journeyed across the great citadels like Ethereum and Solana, examined the consensus engines that keep them ticking, and explored the radical newcomers pushing the boundaries. But now we find ourselves staring at a new and growing challenge, one less about innovation and more about cohesion. Because as the blockchain universe has expanded, it has also fractured. Each Layer 1 blockchain, for all its brilliance, exists today as its own island, a sovereign system with its own rules, tokens, security assumptions, and data formats. Bitcoin cannot natively communicate with Ethereum. Ethereum doesn't understand Solana. Cosmos is doing its own thing entirely. So what we now face is a profound fragmentation problem. The great innovation of crypto decentralization has led us to a place where everything is isolated, siloed, and struggling to collaborate. This, dear contrarians, is the core of the interoperability problem. Why is this such a big deal? Because users don't want to jump between wallets, bridges, chains, and Explorer links just to use an app. Developers don't want to deploy 10 versions of their protocol across 10 ecosystems. Capital gets trapped, liquidity gets fragmented. DeFi loses its composability, that money Lego promise we once cherished. Network effects remain confined to their respective walls. It all feels, in many ways, like the internet before the internet. Back when networks couldn't talk, data couldn't flow, and protocols couldn't agree. The vision now is a blockchain ecosystem that can work as one, where assets, applications, and messages can move across chains seamlessly. But building that future is no small feat. It's a technical gauntlet filled with cryptographic puzzles, mismatched consensus mechanisms, incompatible data formats, and wildly different security assumptions. Take finality, for instance. On Bitcoin, it's probabilistic. Blocks become more final the deeper they go. On Avalanche, finality comes in seconds and is deterministic. Try connecting those worlds and you quickly realize there is no shared sense of time, no shared sense of trust. And then there's the matter of state. How do you verify what happened on one chain from within another? Without native awareness, you have to resort to third parties, external proofs, or contracts that simulate understanding, all of which carry risk. The solution many have turned to, at least for now, is the blockchain bridge, a kind of temporary scaffolding between ecosystems. But if bridges are roads, they are often rickety ones. In the last few years, we've seen billions of dollars lost through bridge hacks. The Ronin hack, the wormhole exploit, Nomad's meltdown, these weren't footnotes. They were catastrophes. Each one revealed the fragility of these systems. Each exposed how extending trust across chains can, ironically, introduce new points of failure. There are many different types of bridges, and they vary wildly in how they approach the problem. Some are trusted custodial bridges. These rely on a centralized party to lock tokens on one chain and issue representations on another. They're simple and fast, but centralization is their Achilles heel. Others use multi-sig or validator-based setups. They distribute trust across a federation. Better than one key, yes, but still vulnerable to collusion, key theft, or poor operational hygiene. Then we have light client bridges, which run an embedded mini version of one chain inside another. It's more trustless, more secure, but it's complex and resource heavy. Cosmos's IBC is a prime example. Zero-knowledge bridges, meanwhile, promise to replace trust with math, using cryptographic proofs to verify that a state transition occurred without revealing the state itself. These are elegant, but still nascent. The technology isn't quite there yet for broad deployment. And then there are optimistic bridges, a bet on honesty, with a challenge period baked in. They assume transactions are valid unless someone raises the alarm. It's clever, but slower, and reliant on watchers doing their job. Each model makes a different set of trade-offs: security, speed, flexibility, decentralization. You can't have it all. And so the debate rages on. Will we one day converge around a single dominant chain? Some argue that we will, that the economic and security gravity of a giant like Ethereum will eventually pull everything in. Others believe in a multi-chain future, where different blockchains serve different purposes, optimized for their own niches, and bound together by strong interoperability protocols. What's more likely is a hybrid world, a few dominant general-purpose Layer 1s surrounded by specialized networks, gaming chains, finance chains, privacy chains, all working together, each doing what it does best. And within this vision, new protocols are emerging. Polkadot, for instance, connects blockchains through its relay chain and parachains. Instead of every chain securing itself, parachains borrow security from the collective. Messages flow through a standardized system, and the whole ecosystem moves as one, with shared validators holding the line. Cosmos takes a different route. Its chains are sovereign, each with its own validators, but connected through IBC, a standardized protocol for communication. Here, sovereignty is preserved, but interoperability becomes permissionless and verifiable. Then there's Layer 0, a messaging protocol designed not to move tokens, but to move information. With its ultralight node model and Oracle relay separation, Layer 0 allows dApps to send messages across chains, letting them become truly multi-chain native. Alongside these, we see new standards emerging, from Chainlink's CCIP to GMP formats, from unified token representations to shared security schemas. Interoperability is no longer a feature. It's becoming infrastructure. And as we look ahead, new possibilities emerge. Atomic swaps could let trades happen across chains without intermediaries, completing only if both sides succeed. Oracles will become more than price feeds. They'll become the connective tissue of blockchain ecosystems. Regulation, too, will play a role, forcing bridges and interoperability protocols to reckon with identity, compliance, and liability in a cross-chain world. As these technologies mature, we're starting to see something remarkable. The borders between chains are beginning to blur. We're moving from a world of isolated L1s to a web of connected systems. A blockchain internet, if you will, one where assets, data, and logic can move freely, securely, and predictably. And in this new world, something strange is happening. Value is shifting. It's no longer just about what chain you're on. It's about how you connect, where liquidity lives, and who controls the infrastructure of interoperability. Which brings us to our next inquiry. In the next chapter, we'll explore the economic engine of Layer 1 blockchains, the investments, the incentives, the tokenomics, and the power dynamics that fuel development, shape adoption, and in many cases, determine which chains thrive and which fade into obscurity. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about protocol design, it's also about who's backing it, who's using it, and whether the incentives align to build something that lasts. Stay with me, fellow contrarians. This next part is where we follow the money. Fellow contrarians, if you've made it this far, I commend your curiosity and your patience, because now we've stepped into the heart of the matter. We've explored how Layer 1 blockchains are built, how they talk to each other, and how consensus is formed. But beneath all the protocol diagrams and validator sets lies the question every investor, builder, and user eventually faces. How do these systems survive and thrive economically? This, dear listeners, is the chapter about Layer 1 blockchain economics and the investment landscape. Let's begin where it all starts, with the tokens. Now, to the untrained eye, a token might seem like a simple unit of value, a coin to hold, stake, or trade. But to those of us who've studied the gears behind the curtain, we know tokens are more than that. They are instruments of governance, security, reward, and coordination. The way they are distributed at genesis and over time sets the tone for everything that follows. Consider Bitcoin. No premium, no early allocation, just pure proof-of-work mining from day one. Ethereum, a carefully organized public sale with chunks set aside for the foundation and contributors. Solana, a far more investor-heavy allocation with less than a quarter of tokens ever reaching the public directly. Each of these choices wasn't just an economic decision. It was a philosophical one, and newer L1S, like Monad and Berachain, have taken note, leaning toward more equitable, community-weighted distributions as a direct response to the sins of the past. But distribution is only the beginning. We must also ask, how does a token behave over time? Bitcoin famously caps its supply at 21 million. Ethereum, on the other hand, has taken a dynamic approach, with supply that contracts during high activity thanks to fee burning and expands only slightly through staking rewards. Some L1S use inflation to fund growth, others burn tokens to tighten supply. Some peg issuance to usage, others follow fixed models. And amidst it all, newer chains are experimenting with hybrid structures, trying to find the perfect economic balance between security, utility, and scarcity. Fees, yes, the dreaded gas, a necessary evil, a fundamental signal, and sometimes a point of rage for the average user. Fee models, too, vary wildly. Bitcoin keeps it simple: bid higher, get in faster. Ethereum's EIP 1559 introduced base fee burning and priority tips. Solana uses a priority fee market layered atop a low baseline. Some chains have even flirted with free transactions. A noble idea, but one that rarely survives long. Then there's MEV, maximal extractable value, the shadowy frontier of blockchain economics. It's the invisible hand that reorders transactions, the silent siphon of value, the reward and the risk, all wrapped into one. And for some chains, it's becoming a major part of validator revenue, whether openly embraced or quietly swept under the rug. But tokens aren't just for paying fees or securing the chain. They're also for governing it. Here, we see a spectrum. On one end, you have chains like Tezos and Polkadot, with formal on-chain governance systems, referenda, and councils. On the other, networks like Bitcoin, governed by social consensus, off-chain debate, and code commits. In between lie various models, quadratic voting, delegated systems, time-weighted votes, each trying to balance inclusivity, efficiency, and protection from whales. And yet, voter apathy remains rampant. Even in the most democratic protocols, participation rarely crosses 15%. In many cases, the biggest wallets, often exchanges, don't even bother voting. Governance is still an evolving art, and while the tooling has improved, the culture often lags behind. Now, let's talk security, not in terms of cryptography, but in economic terms. Because for proof-of-stake networks, security is bought and paid for. Validators stake tokens. Those tokens can be slashed if they cheat, and the higher the value of the stake, the more expensive it becomes to attack the network. This is what we call the economic security budget, and the deeper it is, the harder it is for bad actors to pull off anything meaningful. By 2025, most major POS chains have staking participation between 50 to 70%. Annual yields vary from 3% on the low end to 8% or more, depending on tokenomics, demand, and inflation policies. And with the rise of liquid staking, where staked tokens can be used across DeFi, the line between security and speculation has blurred even further. But we must be vigilant, because economic attacks don't always come with flashing red lights. There are long-range attacks, where attackers use old private keys to rewrite history. There are nothing-at-stake exploits, where validators vote on multiple chains with no cost. There are bribery attacks, grinding attacks, and yes, governance takeovers. Each one has its own countermeasures, slashing, delays, correlation penalties, and the best-designed L1S have woven them into the very fabric of their protocols. Naturally, with all this complexity, investors have adapted. In the early days, Layer 1 investing was driven by hype and promise. But now, it's more disciplined. Venture capital has shifted. The 2017 wave chased Ethereum killers. The 2020 bull market chased high-throughput unicorns. But the 2023 to 2025 trend? It's all about specialization. Chains designed for finance, for gaming, for AI, for identity. We see Monad raising over $200 million to build a faster Ethereum. Berachain raising despite its mimetic nature. Hyperliquid focusing on trading infrastructure. It's no longer just about the chain, it's about the why. Institutions have entered with long horizons, staking infrastructure and careful governance involvement. Retail remains narrative-driven, still chasing yields, still reacting to buzz, but far more educated than before. Today's retail investors track validator performance, monitor GitHub commits, and read token unlock schedules. It's no longer blind speculation. It's a maturing market. And with maturity comes valuation discipline. We now have metrics, network value to transaction ratios, fee revenue multiples, staking yields as discountable cash flows, activity per validator. Even Metcalfe's law is getting a second life in blockchain valuation models. So what are investors really looking at in 2025? They care about throughput, not just theoretical TPS, but real-world execution. They care about finality, how fast, how reliable. They look at cost per transaction, validator uptime, fee revenue, treasury reserves, token velocity, active users, application diversity, and developer activity. The days of hype-driven blind bets are fading. The new world rewards fundamentals. And if we zoom out just a bit further, we start to see how Layer 1S are blending into the broader financial world. Real-world asset tokenization is exploding. Over $25 billion in RWAs now live on-chain, and the race is on for which L1s will serve as settlement layers for tokenized treasuries, real estate, and equities. Institutions are managing treasury assets in staked tokens. ETFs for staking derivatives are gaining ground. CBDCs are being prototyped on L1 infrastructure. Financial inclusion apps are popping up on sovereign L1s across Africa and Southeast Asia. This is no longer a niche experiment. It's a new economic layer being grafted onto the existing global system. And of course, no discussion of blockchain economics would be complete without acknowledging the looming shadow of regulation. Whether it's staking as a security debates, KYC mandates, travel rule enforcement, or environmental policies targeting proof of work, the regulatory pressure is intensifying. Smart L1s are adapting. Some are deploying compliant subnets. Others are building in on-chain identity features. Some are restructuring their governance to emphasize decentralization as a legal defense. The truth is, regulation isn't a threat. It's a filter, a forcing function. The chains that survive will be the ones that build responsibly, transparently, and in alignment with the world they aim to disrupt. So, fellow contrarians, as we wrap this chapter, let us remember, Layer 1 blockchains are no longer just software projects. They are economic organisms, alive, evolving, competing, shaped by incentives, secured by capital, and steered by the communities that believe in them. And now, it's time to look ahead, not just at what these systems are, but what they could become. In the next chapter, we peer into the future, at the grand questions that remain. Will new consensus mechanisms make blockchains faster and fairer? Will quantum computing force a redesign of cryptographic assumptions? Will AI co-pilots rewrite smart contracts in real time? And above all, what will the next decade of Layer 1 innovation look like? Stay with us, because the next chapter is where the map ends and the adventure truly begins. Ah, fellow contrarians, here we are, at the edge of the known world, staring into the great unknown. This chapter invites us to peer through the fog of time, not just at where Layer 1 blockchains are headed technically, but at how they might reshape the way we transact, identify ourselves, govern our communities, perhaps even how we perceive reality itself. Of course, much of this is speculation, as any honest scholar will admit, but the clues are all around us. If we listen closely to the murmurs of the ecosystem, to what builders are building, what investors are backing, and what regulators are wrestling with, we begin to catch a faint but compelling outline of what the future may hold. We've witnessed the rise of data availability layers as a new cornerstone for scaling. Ethereum's dank sharding, Celestia's sovereign data layer, and blob transactions like those in EIP 4844 are redefining what it means to scale blockchains without sacrificing decentralization. This modular future, where execution, settlement, and data availability live on separate planes, isn't just more efficient. It's a philosophical break from the monolithic past. We've seen cryptography evolve from a math nerd's playground to the engine room of blockchain's next leap forward. Recursive zero-knowledge proofs, verifiable delay functions, post-quantum resistance. These are not just features, they are fortresses. And now, fully homomorphic encryption is daring us to imagine a world where data privacy and decentralized computation are not mutually exclusive. Even AI, once the outsider to this cryptographic realm, is pulling up a chair. Machine learning models now fine-tune validator performance, analyze governance votes, and sniff out malicious MEV strategies. Eventually, we may see verifiable AI inference on-chain, meaning that even algorithms will be held to the same transparent, immutable standards as block producers. And what of the infamous blockchain trilemma? Security, scalability, and decentralization, once locked in eternal tension, now show signs of détente. Thanks to modular design, probabilistic models, and clever cryptographic tricks, we are seeing blockchains that stretch the edges of this triangle further than ever before. But technology is only part of the tale. L1 blockchains are no longer confined to tokens and speculation. They are quietly becoming the backbones of real-world systems. From institutional settlement rails to tokenized real estate, from gaming universes with cross-platform economies to verifiable digital identities, the lines between on-chain and real life are blurring, and they're doing so on platforms that can't be censored, edited, or manipulated without a majority of the world agreeing. Of course, the regulators are catching up, whether it's securities classification in the US, MiCA's sweeping framework in the EU, or sandbox-style experimentation in Singapore and Dubai. The global rulebook is being rewritten, and it's not just legal teams adjusting. Blockchain architectures themselves are evolving to accommodate compliance without surrendering decentralization. Privacy-preserving KYC, compliance-optional layers, modular permissioning. The very bones of the protocols are bending to meet the moment. So where are we headed? We're likely to see a world of a few dominant settlement layers, chains so secure, so decentralized, they act as global anchors of trust. Around them, a constellation of application-specific chains built for finance, gaming, identity, or even regions, spinning like moons around these gravity wells. Roll-ups will rise, some L1s will morph into L2s, and others may fade into the fog of technological extinction. But in the end, it won't be about which chain is the fastest or the cheapest. It'll be about who solves real problems, who builds a chain that your grandmother uses without realizing it's blockchain, who builds one your bank settles on, your game character lives in, or your job pays you through. The path to mainstream adoption is not paved in TPS, it's paved in experience, in trust, in utility. And as we prepare to wrap this journey, let me leave you with this. The story of Layer 1 blockchain technology is not a story of code. It's a story of coordination, of strangers agreeing, of rules without rulers, of truth without trust. So now, fellow contrarians, let's bring it home. In our final chapter, we'll reflect on everything we've learned, the patterns, the philosophies, the trade-offs. We'll distill the essence of what makes a Layer 1 blockchain not just survive, but thrive, and what you, as a participant in this great experiment, can take with you. Join me in the closing chapter of this epic journey, the final decoding of what it all means. The final chapter, fellow contrarians, where we gather our scrolls, dust off our boots, and look back over the long winding trail we've traveled through the grand saga of Layer 1 blockchains. We began, as any proper tale does, with the spark that lit the fire, Bitcoin, a radical invention that offered a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and more importantly, showed us that a trustless, decentralized future was not just possible, but inevitable. From those humble beginnings, we trace the lineage of innovation through Ethereum's programmable smart contracts, the rise of high-performance chains like Solana and Avalanche, and the ongoing evolution of specialized and modular networks reshaping the very meaning of scalability. Throughout it all, the base layer, the L1, remained the bedrock, not the flashiest part of the blockchain stack perhaps, but the one upon which everything else rests. Whether it's securing your NFTs, finalizing DeFi trades, or settling real-world asset transactions, Layer 1s are the silent sentinels, ensuring that what is written cannot be rewritten. Immutability, finality, and security. These are the cornerstones that make everything else in Web3 possible. And what a role L1s play in this new decentralized world. They are the foundation for decentralized applications, yes, but they are also economic engines, with token models and staking mechanisms that reward honest participation and punish bad behavior. They are governance arenas, consensus laboratories, and increasingly, bridges between traditional finance and the digital frontier. So as you venture forth, keep a few things in mind when evaluating L1s. Don't be dazzled by marketing hype. Look under the hood. Examine the tokenomics. Understand the consensus. Pay attention to who's building, who's backing, and how the community is governed. If you're in this for the long haul, as any true contrarian is, the fundamentals will always outlast the noise. If your curiosity has been kindled by this series, I encourage you to keep learning. Dive into the white papers. Read the GitHub commits. Join a validator community. This is a living, breathing ecosystem, and the more you understand its mechanics, the more empowered you become as a participant, not just a spectator. And now, our tale draws to a close, but only for now. The story of Layer 1 blockchains is still being written, and you, my fellow contrarians, are very much part of it. If you found value in this series, do the algorithmic gods a favor and like, subscribe, and share this video. Help us spread the good word to others who crave deeper understanding in a space too often driven by hype. Until next time, keep your private keys safe, your questions sharp, and above all, stay decentralized.